In 2022, we celebrate 130 years of HBCU football. On December 27th, 1892, Livingstone and Biddle College, now known as Johnson C. Smith University, played in Salisbury, North Carolina, with Biddle winning 5-0. Over time, HBCU football has evolved. HBCU football's popularity continues to rise. Millions attend games each year and millions more watch on television. The HBCU bands provide some of the top entertainment in the country. Over that time, some of the best players to ever play in the National Football League played at HBCUs. Every Monday through Friday on the HBCU Football Daily Podcast, national radio and television host Donal Ware takes a look at what's happening in HBCU football and talks with coaches, players, administrators, and media about the 2022 season. Make sure you join the conversation on social media by using the hashtag HBCU130. Now, here's your host, Donal Ware.
You've got it locked to the HBCU Football Daily Podcast for today, Friday, December 2nd. I'm Donal Ware. It's Friday. Got one football game. It's the HBCU National Game of the week. It is Jackson State. It is Southern. Perhaps the two most loyal fan bases in all of HBCU football, especially when you're talking about traveling to football games. And it's going to be paramount, I think, for that Southern fan base to travel to Jackson, Mississippi. It's in essence a home game for Jackson State to be able to support that school. Now, with it being the SWAC championship game, I'm sure the ticket allotment is 50-50, but Southern's going to need that support, no doubt. These two teams met back on October the 29th, and Jackson State came away with the 35-0 victory. And I want to check this really quickly. I believe that game was in Jackson, Mississippi, and it was. So, but again, a little bit of a different dynamic, I think, because of the ticket allotment. So, listen. Not much has changed with either team. Southern did lose one more game to Alcorn State after that. Really, Southern was very fortunate to even be in this game because it needed some help. It was on a platter for Prairie View A&M, who could not finish. Texas Southern could not finish. Alcorn State could not finish. Therefore, it left it open for Southern, who did finish. Now, Southern, to some degree, I think, and it was a rivalry game, big-time game, national TV, and not only national TV, but you're talking about network national television with that Bayou Classic being on NBC. They struggled a little bit, but pulled away at the end, just turned it up a little bit too much for Grambling. So when I look at Jackson State, not a whole lot has changed, although I would say from the quarterback play, Shedeur Sanders is phenomenal. He's had a phenomenal season, but not like in the second half, at least, of the season, like we saw in the first half. Tailed off a little bit, threw a couple of interceptions, which is fine. He's only got 5 interceptions. That's fine. You're going to throw some interceptions, but it would make for would, I say, and the operative word is would make for an opportunity for Southern. I look at Southern from an offensive perspective, solid running game. I really like Bashawn McCray. He can do multiple things. He's completing passes at about almost a 60% clip. He's got 8 interceptions, which isn't terrible in 11 football games. Like it's not terrible. He's throwing, but he's got that dynamic where he can run the football. This is the issue. Jackson State's defense is so dominant. Miller, Gaddy, Hunter, all of these guys. And I just think it made for a long day for Southern the first time that these two teams met. And unfortunately, I think it's going to make for a long day. Now, Eric Dooley is an excellent offensive mind. I know he was prepared coming into that game, the first game. It's just that it's hard to execute when you have a dominant defense like Jackson State. We can talk about the offense, maybe not as prolific as it was the first half of the season for Jackson State, but that defense is tremendous. It's going to be a tough go for Southern. I think Southern can have a little bit more success this time around, going to be a little bit more prepared. Once you've seen somebody, you understand tendencies and you understand some of the things that you can do. Still think it's going to be a tough day. Flipping things around. When I look at Jackson State's offense, I mentioned it. Weapons galore. You look at Wilkerson, the running back's been absolutely tremendous. Sanders has been great. Receivers, offensive line is really, really good. This is the thing about Southern. I mean, it's not much more you can say about Jackson State's offense. It's prolific. Here is the thing about Southern's defense. If Southern can put pressure on Shedeur Sanders and make it a longer day for him. Now, in putting pressure on the quarterback, it can open up some things in the run game. That's why the middle of that line for Southern is also going to have to be tough in terms of guarding against the run. And then those linebackers are going to have to come up and make plays as well. But I think from a passing perspective, pass defense perspective, if you're Southern, Jason Dumas and also Jordan Lewis, I mean, Jordan Lewis played sparingly against Grambling. I mean, maybe that was by design to get him ready for this game. You didn't need him as much. He played more on third downs. But, when you talk about Dumas and Lewis, that was supposed to be a prolific pass rush coming into the season. It has not materialized this season. Okay, they've played enough games and played enough games together for that to have come together, and it just hasn't. This, if it's going to happen for Southern, and that what should have been a vaunted pass rush, it's got to happen today. Those two ends have to put pressure on Shedeur Sanders for Southern to have any chance of winning the ball game. You can see Jackson State has only lost two football games in the last 2 years. One of those was to an FBS opponent. I believe it was Louisiana Monroe. The other was also last year to South Carolina State in the last game of the season in Atlanta. What did South Carolina State do? Took its bookends of Godbolt and Green and pressured Shedeur Sanders and Jackson State. As was said in the movie, the name of the movie is escaping me right now, with Denzel Washington when he was the football coach and the defensive coordinator in that championship game, said, blitz all night. And that's what's going to have to happen for Southern to have an opportunity to win this football game. It's going to be an uphill battle from an offensive perspective for Southern. That said, this is the right to play North Carolina Central in Atlanta in 2 weeks. And predictions for the game, I mean, listen, I think Southern is going to give a valiant effort. If it does some of the things that I've suggested, particularly from a defensive standpoint, I think it has a chance. But Jackson State this year has been sort of like a machine. And I'm definitely going with Jackson State in this football game. Should be great. It's going to be ESPN2. It should be a phenomenal football game. Should be a fantastic crowd. I don't know if it's sold out as of yet, but I'm sure it's going to be close to being sold out if it is not already. Your thoughts? You can, if you're watching us on YouTube, of course, you can comment online. Give us your thoughts. If you're listening to the podcast on anywhere that you find your favorite podcast, of course, you can hit us up via Twitter at Box2Row, BOXTOROW. Enjoy the football game. Want to remind you of the weekend edition of Box2Row begins tonight, 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central Time, and 3 p.m. Pacific Time. on ESPNU Radio, on Sirius XM, that's channel 84. And as of right now, Sirius XM is free on a trial basis. So check the show out tonight, channel 84, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 Pacific. And also this weekend on a radio station near you, you can log on to our website at box2row.com to find a radio station in your area that carries the program. You can also listen tomorrow on Saturday, 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central Time, and 6 a.m. Pacific on Sirius XM, channel 142, HBCU. Have a phenomenal weekend. Enjoy the game or whatever games you're going to watch this weekend, and I'll talk with you on Monday.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the HBCU Football Daily Podcast. You can also listen to the podcast at box2row.com, iHeartMedia, or wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to get your HBCU football fix on Box to Row with Donal Ware each weekend on the radio station near you, and on Sirius XM on HBCU, channel 142, and on ESPNU Radio on Sirius XM, channel 84. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Box to Row for the latest in HBCU football, and don't forget to tell a friend.